Do you have any good Urban Meyer stories? And do you guys still stay in touch at all?
Love Urban. Urban's been unbelievable to me, really has. And as soon as I got there, I said, this is Urban Meyer. I've got to find a way to pick his brain as much as I can. It's Urban Meyer. I'm like I've got to figure out what has made him excel at such a high level. And you hear all these stories about how, the kind of worker he is and how maniacal he is. What I found him to be is incredibly gracious with his time, incredibly welcoming. I never forget our first year, we brought him in to speak to our staff. And so we're in a conference room and I said, hey fellas, listen, we're going to have Urban Meyer come speak to us as a staff here. And, I'm expecting it to be really good. And they were all on board. And I'm telling you, I initially planned it for 45 minutes. We're 2 hours in and we could have went for 4 more hours. It was unbelievable. The stuff that he was sharing with our staff, challenging them in ways that I'm sure he's challenged his previous staffs. And our guys were writing notes and we were laughing about it the other day because, he would say something and then he would ask them, if they were looking up at him, he would ask them, the answer. So a couple of them said, hey, I just wanted to keep writing notes so he wouldn't ask me any questions. I felt like I was being put on the spot.
Like a teacher, yeah.
Like fifth grade. You just didn't make eye contact.
I had a couple guys that said, yeah, I couldn't make eye contact with him. I couldn't do it. I was too scared. I couldn't do it. We were cracking up about it. As a matter of fact, we were just laughing about it a couple of weeks ago, but I got a staff that really wants to learn. So Urban's 2 hours in and giving us great stuff. And that kind of started our relationship there. And last year, even through the pandemic, we had breakfast multiple times. I'd pick anytime I called him. I'd say even during his stuff with Fox, I'd say, hey, can I ask you a few questions? I got something that I want to get your thoughts on. And he became really an unbelievable resource. And I've texted a little bit since he got the Jags job, but I've tried to leave him alone a little bit too.
Yeah, you're not going to hang out with him, go down there for a little bit during training camp and get out of the
I'd love to. Yeah, honestly, I'd love to. I'd love to get down there and spend some more time with him. But I also, he's got so many things going on. But I'd love to. I know that he'd be more than gracious. He's really been, what I would hope that I would be if I had someone if I had his pedigree, sure. And there was maybe a younger coach who was hungry to learn, as I hope he thought I was. I would hope that I would be that gracious with my time. And Ryan's been phenomenal too. Ryan Day he's the real deal. What people think he is that. He is the real deal.
So when you first got there, I think you brought out Greg Oden was like I forget his title. What was his title?
He was at the time, Greg was
student manager,
yes, he was a graduate manager.
Graduate manager. So you had Greg Oden. You also, I think, had Scooney Penn in a role.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah.
Are those two playing like against the managers in game? Like, is this the greatest team ever put together on a staff? What was it like?
First of all, high level dudes, as you know. Scooney Penn is a high level guy, man. He's with Memphis now. He's with the Grizzlies now. And as you guys know, Greg's unbelievable. A lovable 7-footer, like big, lovable, like everybody loves Greg. Greg played with the managers every day after practice and before every game. So you saw all of these, sawed off, short managers. We had some size, but you saw all these managers and then you saw 7-foot Greg Oden out there, like just running dudes over. And occasionally he would, try to shoot threes, but when they needed him to score, like he would just he would do what we know Greg Oden does. And, we were able to practice with Greg a few times. And because he was a graduate manager, he was allowed to do it. So we put him on the scout teams. Matter of fact, when we played, before we played Purdue, we put him on the scout team a couple of times because of Haas.
Yeah.
And we said, hey, we need someone to simulate Haas's physicality. So we said, hey, who better than Greg Oden? Let's put him on the scout team. Let's have him simulate all of, Purdue's run so many actions to get their bigs touches. So we got the guy. Greg Oden is going to imitate Isaac Haas, and he's going to simulate that, even though, he's a few years removed from playing. We are probably, 2 or 3 minutes into our defending Purdue actions, and I had to call it off. I told Terry, I said, get Greg out. He's going to hurt our entire team. Get him out. Bows were flying. Guys were falling out of bounds. He was posting them, throwing them into the basketball stand. I said, get him out. I need guys to play against Isaac Haas. So he gave us a great look, but I was afraid he was going to hurt our team.
I will say it was awesome doing your guys' games, because after shoot around, the managers would play. They would play pickup, and they'd grab Greg and they'd grab Scooney, and it's like,
yeah,
you think that it registers with them because they know those guys on a personal level, that you've got the number 1 pick in the NBA draft and the Big Ten Player of the Year from whatever year that was with Scooney playing against them. I'm not sure it did, but those they were beasts.
Well, if you know Scooney, they know because Scooney will tell them.
He let them know. He let those dudes know he was Big Ten Player.
Greg, not as much, but Scooney will let him know. He doesn't mind telling them.
Right.
I loved how Greg grew up because, again, I covered Greg. It's funny. So here's a story going back. I never, ever introduced myself to when I was a recruiting writer back when Rob was young. Now he's really old. I never, ever introduced myself to a head coach until Thad. That was the first coach I ever introduced myself to. It was at the tournament in Arkansas, and he was recruiting Oden and Conley at that point. And I remember going up to him, and I spent a bunch of time around, obviously, that team. They were so good. And eventually I understood, I'm not even going to bother going up to Greg. He has no interest in talking to me. Zero. He didn't want, and it wasn't like he wasn't arrogant or anything. He just didn't want to deal with the media. Mike Conley was great at it, so you'd always talk to Mike and his dad. Both Mike and Mike Sr. were awesome with the media. But, a few years ago, I did a big story for ESPN on Greg for Outside the Lines, and it was just awesome to see how much he's grown up, how comfortable he is with himself, and how social. He's not the most social dude in the world, but he's great now. He's really, he's grown up. He's grown up.
He's great. He's great. I get a happy Father's Day text from him every Father's Day. He was great to have around. And I hope that eventually an NBA organization hires him in a role that they feel like, because it would be helpful, because I think he'd be an incredible asset. I really do. He's continues to grow and mature. He's got a beautiful family. They came on a lot of trips with us. So, yeah, he's great. Mark Titus has some great Oden stories, as you know.
Hey, their AAU team was awesome. The Speed City Heat with Oden, Conley, McRoberts, Eric Gordon, Daquan Cook, Aaron Pogue, those dudes they were killing everybody. It was, but there was also legit crowds to see them play. I remember seeing them at Spiece my sophomore year, and they were all playing, and it was like going to a high school game. There was a lot of people at the game to watch.
Yeah, that was an elite run in an elite group and a ton of fun. And even Greg coming to Ohio State, they had to change some things in terms of dorm security and everything because he's a rock star. He was a rock star coming.